Certainly a tragic day for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and a tragic day for our community. About 3:42 this afternoon, our deputies receive a call for service from the management at the Paddock Club Apartments here in Brandon. They stated that there was a resident there who was throwing items off his balcony, clothing and some furniture. They were unable to make contact with the resident who lived there. No crime had occurred, so they went back in service. A little after 5 p.m. this evening, a fellow neighbor of this resident calls and says that the resident now is naked and throwing cookies at neighbors outside his apartment. Deputies arrive on scene and make contact with a extremely large black male that they later identify as Travis Garrett. They immediately began trying to come into contact and question why he's naked, determine his state of mind, but he immediately becomes combative and they don't have that opportunity. He starts violently striking one of the deputies in the head with his fist with such force that it knocks the deputy to the ground. Another deputy that's on scene tries to de-escalate the situation by using less lethal force and deploys his taser. The taser's ineffective. The deputy who was struck on the ground gets up and tries to deploy the taser again. Matter of fact, tries to deploy the taser twice, and both times it's ineffective. Mr. Garrett then gets in his car and begins to flee from the deputies through the parking lot of the apartment complex. The deputies run to their cars. They have already asked for cars to come and backup to come as they're being struck by this individual. So deputies are already on their way to the scene. They start activating their emergency equipment through the apartment complex. He decides as he's fleeing from these deputies to strike the back gate and not wait for it to open, and rams the gate, exits the back of the apartment complex with the deputies giving chase. He comes out on the Brandon Parkway, ultimately ends up on Lumsden, the road behind us, traveling westbound, fleeing from deputies at a high rate of speed. One of the units who responded to the calls for help was Corporal Brian LaVigne. Corporal LaVigne was in the area. He was actually in the turn lane where he could make a turn onto Lumsden Boulevard. This individual, Mr. Garrett's traveling at a high rate of speed. Mr. Garrett intentionally switches 2 lanes and goes off into the turn lane to strike Corporal LaVigne's vehicle. So the front of his car, with as fast as he could make that car go, struck the driver's side of our Corporal Brian LaVigne. Corporal LaVigne at that time is unresponsive, trapped in this mangle of devastation that Mr. Garrett caused when he intentionally struck this deputy. The deputies can't get to him to perform life-saving measures. He's unconscious. They're doing everything they can, from breaking windows, trying to crawl in through the back window. But the corporal was trapped, again, from this devastation caused from this traffic crash. Ultimately, fire rescue gets there, works on the car for several minutes using the jaws of life, was able to free this deputy. Again, he's still unresponsive. They take him to Tampa General Hospital, where he had succumbed to the injuries. This corporal had such a profound impact in his 30-year career. He was a field training officer, and he had such an impact on so many employees over this 30, almost 31-year career. So you imagine the heartache that the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office is experiencing right now. He had one more shift before his retirement. He was due to work tomorrow, and then he was retiring. His daughter is a law enforcement deputy with our office as well. We have met with the family. He is survived by his wife and his 2 daughters. Again, one of them who's a law enforcement deputy with our office. You can only imagine the pain that they're going through being one shift away from retirement. We now are in the process of investigating the crime scene. The state attorney's office is also on scene. So again, on top of investigating what exactly occurred with the crash investigation, we have to deal with a funeral and planning the proper funeral after this corporal was murdered, intentionally killed by Travis Garrett, one shift away from retirement. So on top of investigating and doing our job serving this community, we also do everything we can as a sheriff's office family to serve Corporal LaVigne's family and honor him as the hero and for the service that he left behind as a teacher, as a mentor, and again, someone who unselfishly served this community. At this time, I'll try to answer any questions. Again, understand this is still unraveling. I'll lightly touch on charges. He has not been formally charged. He also is at the hospital, sustained next to no injuries, very minor injuries. He was taken there as a precaution. Charges pending will probably be the battery on the law enforcement officer, aggravating, fleeing, and eluding from fleeing from the deputies. And again, there'll be additional charges coming for killing this deputy as he murdered him by intentionally ramming his vehicle. But again, he hasn't been formally charged at this time.
Any history with this Travis Garrett? Any criminal history?
No criminal history here in Hillsborough County. We did find an aggravated assault that was not processed up in the state of Georgia. We did see that he was Baker acted up in Pasco County in 2017, I believe, but no criminal history. I do, and I will make sure they get that to you, only that he is 28 years of age.
And how old was the corporal?
The corporal was 54 years old. Again, with the sheriff's office for 30, his anniversary date will be 31 years.
And how long has his daughter been with the sheriff's?
That's a good question. I don't know. We will put that out as well. I know that's part of the press release that we'll get to you.
Sheriff, it sounds like you knew this man personally. Tell us a little bit of just, you told us some of his career. Can you give us a sense of what the man was like personally, what this deputy was like personally?
A great family man, someone who served this community not just by answering calls for service and being a supervisor, mentoring the young troops that are out here, but someone who volunteered to be a field training officer. He had a passion for service, and he wanted to make sure that every deputy that got hired here, that he trained. And some of us are command staff members. I was not one of them, but there are command staff members, executive staff members here, that he was there. We have colonels, and this individual was his field training officer. So you could just imagine over a 30-year span of service here at the sheriff's office, the impact he had on the employees here, from civilian employees to fellow deputies, all the way up to command staff.
Any other questions?
Where are we going as far as the investigation? You've got a lot of, what kind of things that you're having to gather? You've got a lot of stuff to unpack here.
Yeah, a lot to process. A lot of interviews they're conducting, interviewing the deputies. We're reviewing body cam footage. Independent witness that was there. We're trying. We hear that the individual was living with his girlfriend. I can't confirm that. Trying to make contact with her, which I believe we just did, to try to go interview her, to try to get a little better background of him. And again, processing the scene. Our crime scene and forensic team out there now, determining where the vehicle was struck, where it ended up. And again, I think the medical examiner will 100% confirm that his death was a direct result of being struck by that car.
And you were telling us a little bit.
I'm sorry?
Did the suspect strike the deputy's vehicle multiple times?
No, just one time. Again, he had never hit the brakes. We don't know his exact speed. That's part of the investigation, but there were no skid marks. He He was intentionally running his car into that corporal's car.
And so going back to the incident that happened initially, what they were called on, so he was out there, and it sounds like there was just some strange things going on. Can you kind of go over that again? What started this whole thing?
Yeah, it started for a call for service. We responded because the management called and said they observed him throwing clothing and furniture off the balcony. And again, the deputies were unable to make contact. He wasn't a threat to anyone there at the complex. We had no crime, so we obviously couldn't make entry into the apartment. The deputies went back in service. And then maybe an hour and 15 minutes later, from 3:42 up to about 5:03 p.m., when then he was being a little more violent in his behavior, throwing cookies at individuals, where neighbors called and we were able to make contact at that point. Why was he so combative? What was his mental state during that time? That certainly will be something we hope to get a better picture of as we conduct our investigation.
So I know you don't know so far, but using two tasers on him and not going down, is that an indication that there is some drugs involved here that he's fucking with?
That's a great question. Possibly when a taser is ineffective, it could be an individual's mental state. It could be whatever type of our narcotics or drugs are in the system. All of that is possible. And again, that'll be part of search warrants we conduct and blood draws and everything else that's occurring now, as you can imagine.
Have investigators had a chance to speak with this individual, and is he in custody?
One more time, I'm sorry.
Have investigators had a chance to talk with this individual since the incident occurred, and is he in custody at this time?
He is in custody. Again, he's at the hospital. I don't think an interview's been conducted. Right now, they're busy processing the scene, and the deputies who were involved today are back at our office, and they're interviewing them. So he will be interviewed. They just wanted to interview the deputies and the independent witnesses at this time, but 100% he'll be interviewed.
What do you want to tell you?
Two deputies that were punched. Is that right?
It was one deputy that was struck in the head. We transported him to the hospital. He has since been released, fortunately, with no life-threatening injuries.
What do you want to tell? I mean, you've got a lot of deputies out there that are hurting right now, especially in your department. What do you want to tell them right now?
Same thing I told the deputies when I got on scene, the deputies that were his squad mates that work with him, squad mates that were at the hospital when he was transported there. We're a sheriff's office family, and we will get through this. I also told them that you'll never find a more supportive community of law enforcement in Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office than the residents here in Hillsborough County. And with that type of support, we're going to be okay. As hurtful, as emotional, as upsetting as this is, we're going to get through this together.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your patience.